I'm Miss Teri. Some new faces here this morning. Welcome. I'm going to tell you a story because that is like my favorite thing to do. And you might guess that my story today has something to do with fishing. Yeah, fishing. But even though I have this very cool Tigger fishing pole in my hand, that really has nothing to do with my story because that's not how they caught fish in my story. They had nets. Okay, really, this is a net from the back of Mr. Williams' car, but it just gives you a visual, okay? So it would be a net similar to this, but much bigger, and the little parts right here would have been much smaller. But you kind of get the idea. So we have this fishing net, and we're going fishing. Okay, you're with me so far? Okay, good. So early in Jesus' ministry, he was walking around and he was telling stories, he was preaching. And one day he was preaching by the Sea of Galilee. And there were so many people that had come to hear him that they were like getting closer and closer. And he was like, ugh. And so there was a boat right there beside the water. And that boat belonged to a man named Simon. Well, Simon had met Jesus before. His brother Andrew had met Jesus and introduced him. And right before this story takes place, Jesus had actually healed Simon's mother-in-law. So Simon Peter knew who Jesus was. And so he sees this boat, and he's like, all these people are pressing in on him, and he's like, Simon, can we get in your boat and you push out a little bit, give me a little space from all these people? I don't think they were social distancing. I think he was just kind of, getting pressed in. So he gets in the boat, and he pushes back, and he sits in the boat, and he's talking to the people. And when he gets done talking to the people, when he gets done preaching, he looks at Simon, and he says, Simon, why don't you push the boat out farther in the deep water and let down your net? And he said, Teacher, we've been fishing all night long, and we've caught nothing. And he's probably thinking, and you're a carpenter and I'm a fisherman and you're going to tell me how to fish? But okay. So he says, because you say that, we'll do it. So he pushes his boat farther out in the water. He lets down his net, and there are so many fish that the net starts to break. And he's like, hey, guys. He motions to his partners up on the shore, and he says, come on. So they bring their boat out. There are so many fish in the net that they pull them into the boat, and that boat is starting to sink, and there's partner's boat. There's fish everywhere. And Peter's like, and he falls on his knees, and he looks at Jesus, and he says, please just go away from me. I am too much of a sinner to be with you. Because Peter realized that this carpenter who he'd heard sharing and he had met, there was something very different about him. And being around somebody who could do a miracle like that really made Peter realize who he was. And he said, I'm not worthy to be around you. And Jesus looked at him and he said, Peter, don't be afraid. From now on, you're going to fish for people. And after that, they pulled up their boats onto the shore, and they left that great, huge catch of fish, and they followed Jesus. Well, something similar happened later. They spent the next 3 years, Peter and his brother Andrew and their fishing partners, James and John, spent the next 3 years following Jesus, seeing his miracles, hearing him teach, watching him heal people. And then something that they didn't expect happened. Well, there were a lot of things that they didn't expect, but then one day, Jesus was killed. And they're like, wait a minute. He was going to be the king. He was the one that was going to change everything. And then something really weird happened. He rose from the dead. And the disciples had seen him a couple of times. And they just couldn't put all the pieces together. They were so confused. And Peter's like, you know what? I'm going to go back to what I know. He says, guys, I'm going fishing. I just need some time. I just need that. We'll go with you. So they get out in their boat. They take their nets. They go fishing. They're out there all night long, and they catch nothing. And they look up, and on the shore, there's this guy standing there, and he says, hey, friends, have you caught anything? And they're like, no. He said, take your net and put it on the other side of your boat. And they're like, oh, yeah, right, okay. So they take the net, they put it on the other side of the boat, and guess what? Another miracle happened. The net was so full of fish that it started to rip. And John looked at Peter and he said, it's the Lord. It's Jesus. Now, Peter was a little bit of an all-in guy. So Peter hears it's the Lord. And, he's been out in this boat all night fishing, and he's kind of sweaty and nasty, and he's taken off his coat. Well, he hears that it's the Lord, and he grabs up his clothes, and he puts them back on and jumps in the water. Now, why you jump in the water? Why you put your clothes on to jump in the water? I don't know, but that's Peter. He's all in, okay? So now he's all in the water, and he's swimming. And the rest of the disciples, they realize, it's only like 100 yards to the shore. That's like the length of a football field. So they, take the boat and the fish, and they go up there. And they get there, and there's a fire, and there's some fish cooking on the fire. And Jesus says, bring some of the fish that you caught. Well, here goes Peter all in. He goes and he gets the whole great big net, and he's dragging the whole thing. Like they can eat that many fish for breakfast. So, Jesus takes a couple of fish and he puts them on the fire and they have breakfast. And I bet this had happened before. Think about it. A lot of these followers of Jesus were fishermen. I bet they'd had fish for breakfast before. And they sat down and they had breakfast with Jesus. Here's what I want you to know. That Jesus who knew Peter, he knew what Peter knew. He knew that Peter was a fisherman. He knew that he was a carpenter. But he knew Peter's heart. And Peter realized that this Jesus was somebody special and somebody different. Well, this Jesus is the same Jesus that we know. And just like he knew Peter, and he knew how to connect with Peter, he knew what his giftings were, he knows us, you and me, that same way. And he wants us to spend time with him and us to learn how to fish for men, just like he taught them. So, if you go fishing this summer and you take your net, just remember that Jesus knows you, he sees you, he knows where you are, and he loves you very much.